Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Five Star Revolution podcast with your host, CJ Price. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight on another special episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Five Star Revolution Podcast, and follow us on Facebook, Five Star Revolution Podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest, a former WWE superstar and tag team champion, one half of the Basham. It's Doug Basham. How you doing?
Hey, doing good, CJ. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. And thanks for joining us here tonight.
Thanks for having me, man.
So I'm
Mind if I
sure
drink a
everyone's
little
curious.
coffee? Do you?
I'm sorry?
You don't mind if I drink a little coffee, do you?
No, go ahead, man. This is your show. Your time. So I'm sure everyone's curious about how did you get your first love for this business?
Well, my first love for the sport of wrestling came when I was 3 years old. Man, when I was old enough to turn the channels learn how to turn the channels on the TV. I remember seeing wrestling for the first time, and just sat there and I watched it. You know how kids like to play and run around. Dad told me that I sat there in front of the TV and I didn't move. I just sat there like a good kid for once in my lifetime. Sat there and watched TV, and then he told me like every day I would get up, I'd go to the TV and try to turn the channels to try and find wrestling. But it only come on once a week, right, on Saturdays. But I got up every day and was trying to find wrestling on the TV channel. So that's where my love of wrestling started.
Who were your favorites growing up?
I'm sorry, my favorites. Oh man, I grew up watching Mid South, Memphis Mid South wrestling. So Jerry Lawler when I was younger, Bill Dundee, Dutch Mantel, an old name nobody may remember, Sonny King, Wildfire Tommy Rich, uh, Eddie Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. Those guys, Dream Machine Troy Graham, Nature Boy Buddy Landell. Uh, those are the guys that I grew up watching because there was no WWE or where I was, so I watched what was put in front of me and loved the guys that I loved.
And how'd you get your start into the professional wrestling business?
When I was watching Mid South Wrestling, Memphis Mid South Wrestling, I think it was called USWA at the time. Um, During the show, see, I was probably about 14, 15, 16 years old. And during the show, like one of the commercials would be, have you ever wanted to be a professional wrestler? If you dreamed of becoming a professional wrestler, come and wrestle, come and learn professional wrestling at the Nashville, at the USWA Wrestling Academy in Nashville, Tennessee. But I didn't have a car, didn't know how to get down there or where it was. So I just kind of hung that up and said, well, I wish I could drive down there. I'd love to learn how to be a wrestler. So I kind of hung that up. I was about 15, 16 years old. So I hung that up and went on with my studies at school. And lo and behold, I actually wanted to be a doctor. So I graduated high school, went to Indiana University and joined the pre-med program and was on my way to becoming a doctor. And I had an opportunity to get a job at a hospital. We had a family friend who was a doctor, and he got me a job at one of the hospitals in Louisville, Kentucky. So I transferred from Indiana University in Bloomington, where Bobby Knight was coaching. That's kind of why I went there. Go Hoosiers. To back home to Southern Indiana, right by Louisville, and went to one of the satellite colleges. I think I went to IUS, Indiana University Southeast, and worked in the OR at a Jewish hospital here in Louisville, Kentucky. And it was a room right in the middle of all the ORs. And I was a gopher. Basically, I was a runner. They would call in, they would need supplies. I would get it and take it to the operating room. So it was pretty cool, pretty neat. And then during that time, my aunt started dating this professional wrestler. His name was Nightmare Danny Davis. And I thought that was just the coolest thing because I liked the Nightmares. I remember the Nightmares growing up as a tag team, watching them on USWA Wrestling. And I remember the first time I got to meet him, was at a Christmas gathering, and man, I was so nervous. I was so starstruck, and he was Jack, man. He was like, he was not a tall guy, but he was as wide as he was tall, and just a super nice guy, man. One of the best personalities, characters, just a great guy. So I met him, and then it wasn't long after that he opened a wrestling school. And mind you, I'm going to college, going to school, pre-med, trying to be going to be a doctor, and then he opens this wrestling school in Louisville, not far from where the hospital was. So I asked one day if I could come over and check out the school. He said, "Yeah, come on over." And I went over there, and he goes, "Why don't you get in the ring? I'll show you a few things." So I got in the ring and ran the ropes, which hurt. Hit the turnbuckles, which hurt. He goes, "Now, here, let me slam you." I said, "I don't think so." So, um, and then some other students started to join, and I got in there and just kind of ran class with him. And he took me aside after that first session and said, "Kid, because I don't say this very often, and it's very rare when this happens, but I think you're a natural at this." And that was all it took. The rest is history.
So we're talking about dangerous Danny Davis, right?
No, not Dangerous Danny Davis. The Nightmare Danny Davis. He was the Dangerous Danny Davis was the referee.
Okay.
Nightmare Danny Davis was one of the wrestlers with Nightmares, and then went on to have a successful singles career in Mid South Southern wrestling, Georgia. This all the back when the territories were still here. He was a pretty big name back then.
So what was your wrestling name back then?
Mine, I was the All-American Doug Basham because I was an All-American in sports.
So who was your first match against, and what did you learn from that match?
My very first match ever, I was put under a mask. I was horrible. I was not even ready, but are you ever ready for your first match? And I wrestled in a city called Central City, Kentucky. And I was under a mask, and I was wearing blue jeans and a button-up plaid shirt, and I was called one of the Texas Hangmen. And I was so nervous. Was in there with some guys that were from the school, and I remember I got tagged in. The only thing I could remember how to do was a headbutt. I couldn't remember anything. I forgot how to do everything. So I was headbutting these guys, and I was headbutting them, for real, because I forgot how to do everything. And they were like, "Get out, get out." That's funny. So that was my first experience in wrestling, my first match. So that's what happened there. So I was as they say, I was the poops, drizzling poops. How about that?
So how'd you get involved into OVW? Because I remember that's how you first got your official start with WWE.
I was Danny's first student, right? He opened a school. I came in, and I was the very first one that he trained here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I was the very first when he originally opened up his school, called it Nightmare Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling. And then he had the idea he had to train guys and have kind of grow and build his own company, guys that he could run shows with, and uh, guys that he knew who he trained would wrestle and work the way that he, you know, thought was fit, the best way, his way. So when he finally trained enough guys and got enough guys coming around, he developed a company called Ohio Valley Championship Wrestling, and started running shows, and then wanted to start doing TVs. So he opened a company, Ohio Valley Wrestling. We started doing some shows around the area, and then he started started filming some of our shows and writing TV, and that's how I got involved with Ohio Valley Wrestling. And then the very first official TV taping of Ohio Valley Wrestling, I cannot remember the date. I don't know if you can Google it or what, but I remember my first match was against Tracy Smothers. I wrestled Tracy Smothers on the very first OVW TV taping. So that that right there itself is something very memorable, because Tracy, rest in peace.
So I remember your name used to be Daja Basham.
Daja? I don't think I've ever heard that one.
No, Daga. I think it was Daja Basham, wasn't it?
I don't think so.
I
I think
swear. I swear it was.
I've always been Doug.
It was your
You're
partner then?
you're thinking of Damaja. Damaja,
Okay,
yeah,
Damaja.
yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. You're thinking of him, and he went on to become my tag team partner in WWE, and we named him Danny Basham.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
you
and
guys look the
no,
same.
no worries. Yeah, we do, we do. We're two big bald guys. That's what they thought. They goes, you guys look like brothers. We're like, okay, and we're gonna call you guys the Basham brothers, and we're gonna make you guys look alike. We're like, how are you gonna make us look alike? So we went out there and kind of played everything off as if we were twins, and just did the best we could, and had a pretty successful career in
So you
WWE.
guys are not related whatsoever.
Zero. We're like 7 years apart in age too.
Wow. You guys still talk, or
5 years.
you guys still talk together, or?
Oh, absolutely, man. To this day, we'll call and talk to each other like maybe once a month or once every other month. We'll call each other and just check on each other and see how we're doing and catch up, man. Friends for life.
So were you in OVW? You shared the locker room with guys like Randy Orton, Batista, Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, guys like that.
Yep, we sure did. Of course, when I'll back that up just a little bit from WWE back to the developmental territory days, when Jim Cornette came and became a part of OVW, and again, I cannot remember the exact year to date, but Jimmy and Danny uh, became partners, and then the W World Wrestling Entertainment developmental territory, Jimmy brought that with him to Ohio Valley Wrestling. So we were like the farm league, the developmental territory for WWE, and they would send all these guys down to OVW to get TV ready. And those guys, the first group, the first wave of guys that came down to OVW when I was there, guys like myself, Nick Dinsmore, Rob Conway, the Damaja, Danny Holly, and there was a host of others that were at Ohio Valley Wrestling that helped work and train these guys to get them ready for WWE. And that first wave of developmental talent that came through was Dave Batista, John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, Charlie Haas, Mark Jindrak, Sean O'Hare, Dice, Tyler. What was his working name in WWE? Uh, he was with Christian there for a while. His bodyguard.
Tyson
Tyler.
Tomko.
Yeah, Tomko. Yes, he was there. So there was like just a huge group of talented guys that was down here in OVW that we helped train. That moved up. Then we moved up. Myself, Nick, Rob, Damage, and we moved up after. So I don't want to say I'm not taking any credit for training those guys, but I did work with them while they were down here in Ohio Valley Wrestling for pretty much their whole tenure while they were developing their skills, getting ready for WWE.
How was it like working with those guys?
It was great, man. At that point in my career, I had been wrestling for about 8 years, and some of them guys had just started, and some of them had been in maybe a year or something like that. So, I could work with a broomstick, and make a broomstick look good. But these guys were so talented, and they had a lot of athletic ability. They had great looks to them. They were hungry, and they were willing to learn, and they were like sponges. So it was really easy working with these guys, and helping them, and helping get them ready for the next level.
Who was your favorite wrestler to work with while you were in OVW?
Man, there was a couple. I loved working with Nick Dinsmore because it was so easy. I mean, it's like he knew what I was going to do, when I was going to do it. He knew what I wanted him to do, and when I wanted him to do it. It was almost like a dance, but a physical dance. And then I also liked working with my tag partner Danny. Same with him. We were on the same page, and we didn't have to. All we had to do was look at each other, and we knew what we wanted. And then Rob Conway was also a good one to work with as well.
I love Rob Conway.
He's a good guy, good man, good wrestler, good performer, had a good mind, good head on his shoulders. Such did Danny and also Nick. Like I said, there was four of us that were called the old Ohio Valley OVW Originals, and we're the four originals, kind of like the four horsemen. So we're the four originals of OVW, and kind of the backbone of OVW.
So how was it like getting that call from WWE that you were getting brought up to the main roster?
Got a funny story to share with you about that, how that happened. While you're training and trying to become, uh, uh, live your dream, you've got to fake it till you make it, right? So you have to work a part-time job or a full-time job and do this on the side and train, hone your craft on the weekends. Well, I had a really good job at Ford Motor Company. I worked in the factory while I was wrestling and trying to hone my skills. I was back in 90, 93, 94, 95, maybe 96, 97. I was making about $80,000 a year working at the factory, but I was working 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and 8 hours a day every other Saturday. I was earning, you'd earn it. But I was on the assembly line, and what I did, I was down in this pit and trucks. I worked at a truck plant, would be going over my head, and I'd have a handful of boats in one hand and a power drill in the other, or a power wrench in the other, and I was putting bolts in the truck because they put running boards up underneath there, and I'd have to secure the running boards. So I had my cell phone back then. I had a flip phone. Didn't have all this technology. So I had my flip phone sitting on a pile of boats beside me as I'm walking down this narrow, pit. Only had so much room to get my work done. And my phone started ringing. And I knew what the area codes for Connecticut were. I think it was a 203, 203 area code number. And when I saw that area code on my phone, I almost crapped my pants because I'm like, oh my gosh, we called it New York. That's New York. That's New York. We called WWE New York at the time, even though they were based out of Connecticut. So I grabbed my phone, and I had these bolts in one hand. I dropped the gun, grabbed my phone, and it was Johnny Laurinaitis on the phone. And he goes, "Hey, Doug, Johnny Laurinaitis, how are you doing?" And I said, "Johnny, I've been waiting for this call my whole life, but can I call you back?" He goes, yeah, call me back." I don't think he's ever had anybody say, "Hey, can I call you back?" But I couldn't talk to him at the moment. But I didn't want to miss the call. So I got my team leader. He came down. I said, "I've been waiting for this call." Everybody knew what I was trying to do when I was trying to wrestle and make it. So he took my spot. I went and talked to Johnny Ace. And he's like, "Doug, that's never happened to me before." It's like, I'm sorry. If you knew where I was, you'd understand. And then I got my contract. And then, so that's a funny story about how I got my phone call for getting my developmental contract. But getting the call up to become a part of the active roster was kind of a process you had to go through. Um, so what happens is they will bring you up on the road and try and let you do some dark matches on TV, and then put you on the road and work some of their active roster talent on house shows. Just get a report on you and see how you do and just evaluate you. So when I got that call to go on the road and be evaluated, I was John Cena was just pulled up at the time, and they were putting him out there as that ruthless aggression. And so he and I would ride up and down the road together because the WWE would give talent that they're looking at, developmental talent. They'd give them a car, and they'd get them a hotel for TV and stuff. So because we didn't make big money yet, so they're doing that to help us out. So John would ride with me, and we'd share the room, and free car because he just moved up too. He wasn't making big money yet. And then went up there. I think I was on the road with them for a couple of weeks. Then I came back down to OVW for a minute, and then they brought me and Danny both up to take a look at both of us together. And we had our matches for 1 week, and then the second week we went back. We had our matches on the house shows. We were sitting in catering, waiting to see what we were going to do. And Johnny Laurinaitis, no, who was it? It was Johnny Laurinaitis came up to us. He said, "Hey guys, you guys are going to debut tonight as the Basham brothers, and you're going to work with Rikishi and Spanky." And we were like, of course, I'm jumping up and down, going, "Yes, the Basham brothers! I love it. That is a great idea." Danny's over there going, "Oh man, oh man." So that's kind of how that developed and happened.
So I remember you guys being part of JBL's cabinet, which was awesome. Love that. How'd you feel working with JBL and being part of that group? Also, I remember you had a manager, Shaniqua, right?
Yeah, we did. Yep. We'll back up a little bit. We'll talk about Shaniqua, Linda Miles. Whenever we first started, we in OVW we wore black leather pants because the black leather pants started whenever I first came back to Ohio Valley Wrestling and remade a debut. I'll back up a little bit more too. When Jim Cornette first started coming around, I was not able to be a part of the show Ohio Valley Wrestling because I was there for a minute and then I had to leave. So I was there for like the first shows and then had to leave because my work schedule didn't allow me to be able to be a part of the show, but I was still wrestling on the weekends and stuff like that. So I had to stay off TV, I think for a year or so, maybe, I can't remember how long, maybe 2 years, but I was still wrestling on house shows and doing all that. And I took that time to change my body. I was, before I was too skinny. I needed to grow. I needed to pack on size. So I took 2 years and totally changed my body. I mean, I went from toothpick to tree trunk. You know what I mean? I packed on some size and looked totally different. And then I had the opportunity where I could move my work shift and be able to be a part of TV. So I got with Jim Cornette, told Jim Cornette I had this idea of how to come in. I told him, I said, I look totally different now. Nobody's going to know who I am. And I had this idea. I was watching a Nicolas Cage movie called 9mm, and there was a character on there called Machine. And he wore the black leather mask, he wore the black leather pants, and he was just a killer. I mean, he was just a killer. And I said, that would be an awesome wrestling character. So I brought the idea up to Jimmy. I showed him the clip, and he loved it and said, that is a great idea. He goes, we're going to do it. So he wrote all the TVs, the whole way to bringing in Machine and all this was his idea. The Revolution was his idea, and he wrote it, and I performed it. So that's where the black leather pants came from. And then we had a whole bunch of storylines where I got unmasked. I'm Doug Basham, trying to take over the company and yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And then there's the rest of the story. So when we got moved up, we still wore the black leather pants. So when we started, we were the Basham brothers, and we'd come out wearing black leather pants, both of us bald and looked like two roughnecks, right? Two rough tumble kind of guys. So there was this writer who went to a Britney Spears concert. Yes, he went to a Britney Spears concert, and Britney Spears was dressed up like a dominatrix, and all her dancers were wearing black, the black leather looking pants. And this writer got this great idea, that since the Bashams wear black leather pants, let's put a dominatrix with them. So that's how Linda Miles, or AKA Shaniqua, was introduced to the Basham brothers. So that's where that came from. Interesting story. And then we went on and had a pretty successful run with Linda as our manager. Became
Yes, you
tag
guys
champs
did.
and made some money.
Yes, you guys did. You became two-time tag team champions. And one of those matches were with those Los Guerreros, Eddie and Chavo Guerrero, right?
Oh, classic matches. Some of the best matches we had while we were there. You know, those were fun. Working with those guys was, I learned so much from working with Eddie and Chavo. It's ridiculous. I thought I was at that point in my career. I'd been in the sport for like 10 years, so I thought I was like, I know my stuff. Yes, I knew my stuff, but I learned so much more when I moved up to that level, bro. Learning from Eddie and Chavo and Rikishi and Billy Gunn and all the guys like that, Scotty Too Hottie, working with those guys, it took it. I went to a whole nother level of wrestling.
So who first told you backstage, hey, you guys are gonna become tag team champions tonight?
Uh, who was it? I think it was the agent who was agenting our match. I think it was Fit Finley. I think Fit Finley he agented our matches a lot. And he came up and told us, hey, you guys are going to win the titles, put the titles on you guys tonight. This is how it's going to happen. Boom, boom, boom. And we were like, huh? And it was we won them at a pay-per-view. I think it was, I can't remember which one it was. No Way Out, I think, where we won them from Eddie and Chavo. And
Yes,
couldn't have.
then you guys went to WrestleMania 20 after
Yep.
that with the titles.
Yep. And I think we retained them, and then we lost them on a Monday Night Raw after that, I think. Or no, SmackDown too.
Yeah, I was gonna
SmackDown
say,
after that.
I don't remember you guys on SmackDown, but
Yeah.
I do remember when they split you guys, which was a shame. And you went to Raw, and Danny went to SmackDown.
No, I stayed on SmackDown. Danny went to Raw.
Oh, okay. See,
All bald guys look alike.
so why did it decide to split you guys up?
Vince thought that it was time. They've done just about everything they could do with us as a tag team, and he wanted to create two new stars. So he wanted to separate us and split us up, keep me at SmackDown because Undertaker and JBL wanted to keep me there with them, and then move Danny on to Raw and you know give us the ball and let us run with it, see what we could do.
I thought your character as a singles guy was pretty cool.
The Bash man, it didn't quite. Danny had the black stuff on his eyes and
Yep.
Raw and stuff like that, and I was coming across. My character just did not. My idea did not come across in the ring the way it come across here. Vince didn't get it. He didn't understand it, and it didn't work. So, oh well, such is
So
life,
can you explain the backstage morale at the time when you were there?
It was through the roof, through the roof. I mean, we were selling out arenas when John Bradshaw Layfield was champion. We were selling out arenas. Pay-per-views were sold out. The buys were just ridiculously good, and the morale. Everybody was working. Everybody was pretty happy, But there's always, no matter where you are or where you're working, there's going to be people who are extremely happy. Then there's going to be people who are, kind of disgruntled. It's just the way it is.
I never heard anything about you having any backstage heat. Did you have any backstage here at all?
Not that I know of. I think me and Danny pretty much kept our nose clean. We did what was asked of us. We were very good at our trade. We knew what to do. We were very reliable. Whenever we worked with guys, they knew if we had to be somewhere, they knew we'd be there. We had to catch them, they knew we'd catch them. So then that took about a year's worth of respect, I guess, from them, or a year's worth of gaining everybody else's respect that these guys know what they're doing. They're good. Being a part of the family. You know what I mean?
Right.
Takes about a year to go out there and do the right thing and show them you know what you're doing.
So besides Danny Basham, are there any wrestlers that you talk to?
I talked to Nick Dinsmore. I talked to Rob Conway still because they live around here where I live, here in the Louisville, Kentucky area. I talked to a guy named Jesse Sorensen. He's a really good friend of mine. He was in Impact. He's a guy that broke his neck in Impact a long time ago. He and I are really good friends. Uh, Frank Miller, who used to be Trailer Park Trash in OVW, I talk with him. Other than that, that's pretty much it, you know, of the main guys that I talk to on the phone. Who else? Let's see. No, that's pretty much it.
A couple more questions for me, Mr. Basham, because I know you
You
gotta
got it,
go
buddy.
here with this guy. So, do you have any funny backstage stories or funny road stories from when you were in WWE?
Oh, do I have stories? How much time do we have?
Just one, just one.
Oh man, let me see. What is one that I would be okay putting out on the airwaves? We were flying overseas, right? I think we were going to Australia. Do you remember Nathan Jones?
Yes.
All right, 6'11", just a big, strong, scary guy, bald, Australian. You know, went to jail for bank robbery, right? But he was a guy like that. He was driving the getaway car, and they got caught. I think that was a story. So we're flying overseas, right? And I'm sitting next to Nathan, and I fell asleep on the plane while we were flying, obviously. And on this flight, we had Ric Flair was with us on this tour, um, and I was sitting up close to the front of the plane, and I had Ric Flair was like maybe 4 rows up, sitting to my left. JBL was sitting up front too, up to my left, and Funaki was sitting across the way from me. I think he was sitting next to Shelton Benjamin or somebody like that. I can't remember exactly who, but what happened on this trip? I fell asleep and I was out, and all of a sudden, I woke up because I felt like I was coming out of my seat, like like a roller coaster ride, and I heard my tray slamming, bam, 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 bam. I'm like, I woke up and like, what's going on? Oh my goodness! And I look over. What was happening was we were hitting turbulence, and it was making the plane drop like 400 feet, just straight down, and then it would come back up. And I mean, the turbulence was horrible, and the pilots were like, I don't know why, I don't see how this plane didn't get ripped apart. Of course, they said that after the fact, right? And but it was bad. It was really, really bad. I had never been nervous on a plane before, but I was like, are we going to make it? Because the turbulence, it would drop. It felt like somebody just took the floor out from under you, and you're falling, and you was raising up out of your seat. It was such a sudden change. So I look over. I have this 6'11", 320-pound man sitting next to me, right? So I look over up at Nathan. His big hands has got a death grip on the handle, and he was already a white guy, right? But he was ghostly white. I mean, he was white as a sheet. I looked at him, and his eyes were about as big around as $50, and he didn't say a word. He was like just kind of shaking without shaking, and just hanging on for dear life. He was scared, and I saw that, and I'm like, hi, oh. And so what did I do? I just closed my eyes and went back to sleep. I said, if this is the end, I'm gonna sleep through it. So I went back to sleep. Right? And I woke up whenever I woke up, whatever. And Nathan Jones is sitting there eating like breakfast or whatever. And I wake up, and, hey Nathan, what's going on? He goes, my God, how did you do that? And I go, how to do what? How did you sleep through that whole thing, mate? I was like, I don't know. I don't know. He goes, I was scared. I was so scared. He's like, I don't know how you did it. Like, I don't know either. I just went back to sleep.
Such a
But
big,
anyway,
tough dude, man.
big, tough dude. More scared than anybody I've ever seen scared in my life.
That's funny, man.
Oh, I'm just glad he didn't grab me, because I think he would have crushed me, because his hands were white knuckling, grabbing, and you could he was indenting the handle. He was grabbing it so hard. He was scared.
That's
Very scared.
funny.
So that's there's a story for you.
So my last question for you, Mr. Basham, is you're a trainer for OVW now, right? How
Yes,
is
I
it
am.
like to come full circle that you started there and now you're a trainer there?
This is an excellent question to end on, and thank you very much for asking. Um, it is funny and is weird that you said my career has come full circle because I started out in OVW. I went and had my career trying to get a developmental contract. Got it. Went and had my WWE career. Did that. Then went and had my career with after wrestling until I retired. Did that, and then had to come up with another career, which is now in medical sales, is which I do now. And then after becoming successful at that, coming back to OVW and helping all these other kids. Well, I call them kids because they're younger than me. All these other athletes reach their dreams. So, and how that happened was, I have a buddy who owns a restaurant over here close by where I live. And I was sitting every now and then I still get fan mail, and people send me pictures and write me letters and thank me for, everything I did, and send their big fans and would ask me to autograph these pictures, send them back to them. So I do that. If they have a self-addressed, stamped envelope, I always send them back. So I got this one uh, awesome letter from a military vet. He sent me these pictures, and he sent me quite a few of them. And he said that he collects a lot of wrestling pictures and sends off to be signed, and he puts them in a book. And he said it helps him with his PTSD. And the letter he wrote was really touching. And I brought these pictures and these letters because I was becoming really good friends with the bartender at well, it's not a bar, it's a restaurant, but at the bar. He was a really big wrestling fan, so I showed him these pictures that the guy had and the letter that he wrote, which was touched me. I was like, that's awesome. That's why I did this, for this stuff right here. And then the owner of the restaurant walks by and he goes, "Oh, hey, I took those pictures." And I was like, "Huh? What? What?" He goes, "Oh, hey," and he introduced himself. "I'm Greg Brown. I own the place, and yeah, I took those pictures." And I was
Mhm.
like, "What?" And he started explaining to me how he took them and when and all that. And I went, "Oh my God, yes, I remember." Greg Brown, he used to be one of the photographers for a long time ago for Danny and OVW. He would come in and take still photos of us. He would be around the ring and take photos of us back when we were working in Ohio Valley Wrestling at the Louisville Gardens and stuff like that. And I remembered him. I was like, "Oh my gosh." And he said he had a whole pile of old pictures and wanted to know if Danny or Jim Cornette or Al Snow, who is now the new owner of
Mhm.
Ohio Valley Wrestling, um, if he would want some of these pictures. So I said, "You know what? Let me get in touch with Danny and Jimmy and Al, and I'll see if they want them. I would like to maybe purchase them or do something like that." And that since that day, me and Greg, we become just super great friends, man. And he comes over and helps us with Ohio Valley Wrestling now with our TV show, with pictures and stuff like that. And we go golfing, even though I'm horrible at it. We go golfing and go hang out and have fun. But we've become really good friends since then. And he's a super great guy.
Very
But
cool.
I get in contact with Al Snow. And at the time, this was during the pandemic, towards the end of the pandemic, I believe, where restaurants started to open up again a little bit. And Indiana, I live in Indiana. Indiana opened up before Kentucky did because Ohio Valley Wrestling, the Danny Davis Arena, is in Louisville, Kentucky. So they still didn't allow crowds to gather yet. So they had a little place over here in Indiana, which they were filming their TV show out of. So I went to go see Al at that arena. Well, I called Al first. He said, "Yeah, come to the show and come check it out." So I did. And the only way I can compare where it might make sense and people understand what happened is when you have, and this is kind of dark and I shouldn't say it this way, but when you have an alcoholic who goes to AA meetings to stay away from alcohol and to stay strong and stay sober, and he doesn't go around alcohol, right? Because if he does, one sip, it's over, right? Same thing with wrestling. I stayed away from it because if I get one little sip of wrestling, boom, I'm back in it. Sure enough, man, that's exactly what happened. I went to that show, the TV show. Then I went to the next week's TV show, and Al, that son of a gun, he knew what he was doing. He goes, "Hey, Doug, why don't you come back next week and maybe help age in a match?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." And, "Hey, Doug, why don't you come back next week and help me do this?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, okay." And it just kept going and going. He goes, "Hey, how would you like to hold one of our teaching classes?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, okay." Just more and more and more, just feeding. He's just feeding the flame, feeding the flame, and it just went from a cinder to just a full on blaze, right? And here I am now, with Al Snow. I help produce the show. I help write the show. I help agent the matches of the show. I'm the road agent for the house shows now, meaning I will drive the ring truck, whatever, and control, just agent everything, manage the show. Uh, I'm the head trainer for the advanced training class at the Ohio Valley Wrestling and Al Snow Wrestling Academy here in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm all in, man. I'm
So you're
eyeballs
still
deep.
involved in the professional wrestling business full time.
I am back into the wrestling business, sport of wrestling full time again, even more so. But I'm doing everything behind the scenes instead of, but I'm behind the camera now. I'm not in front of the camera.
Right.
And I'm actually learning the different side of wrestling. I knew it, but I didn't know it. You know what I mean? And Al's helping to teach me that side of it, and I'm really enjoying myself, and I'm glad I got back into it. So,
And we're glad that you got back into it too, because I definitely enjoyed your work with you in WWE. It was amazing. We
thank you, man.
had a great tag team run. A shame that WWE let you go, but it is what it is.
Hey, you gotta feed that machine, man, and it's just a never-ending cycle. You know what I mean? It's just part of it.
Right. So, is there any social media that you want to plug for the fans to follow you on?
Man, I got a Facebook page, and there's a couple of them out there. I don't know why people want to pose to be somebody else, but there's a Facebook page where I have my action figures as the background, and I think I am standing on the field of the Indianapolis Colts field. So that one is me. I'm thinking about starting up maybe an Instagram and maybe a Twitter. There's just so much stuff going on at Ohio Valley Wrestling right now, and I want to get it out there. Uh, we have a lot of talented guys here at Ohio Valley Wrestling now, and you can catch the show for all your fans out there that's listening to the podcast. You can we're on the Fight TV network, the FITE network, and you can download the app on your phone or on your iPad, and it's on every Thursday night at 8 no it's 7 p.m. and it's a 2-hour show. And the shows, we're doing some stuff out there right now that a lot of other wrestling organizations are not doing. It's entertaining. The guys are getting better. They work their tails off, and the wrestling, they're telling stories, not just going out there and doing acrobatic feats that I could never ever do. But we have that though. We have a little bit of everything for everybody, man, and it's a really really good show, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
I do watch OVW every week on Fight TV because I have one of the wrestlers on here before. His name is Ronnie Roberts. I'm sure you're aware of him. He's a
Yep.
great guy, and I love his work as well.
Outstanding, man. And I hope all your podcast listeners check out OVW Wrestling on Fight TV, and just know that there's this guy here behind the scenes turning the wheels.
There you go, guys. Former WWE Tag Team Champion, one half of the Basham brothers, Doug Basham. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. It was a true pleasure. And join us right on Facebook, 5 Star Revolution Podcast. Have a great night, Mr. Basham.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.